What's going on, everybody? This is Ryan Antkowiak, host of the Full Count Fantasy Baseball Podcast. But I'm back. I am with the Hawk today, co-hosting the Prospect Pod. Really excited to be back. I've done a couple. I'll probably do a few more. Keeps me sharp as we work towards the season when I get to do the Full Count show with my boy, the Country Biscuit. But today we are with you to talk prospects. This is the Detroit Tigers Prospect Pod. And a little housekeeping before we turn it over to the star of this show. Let's talk a little bit. That's you. Let's talk a little bit about the Weekly Streamer Network Patreon page. If you guys didn't hear yet, we have released our own Patreon page. When you tune in and check us out, subscribe, follow, etc., you can get access to exclusive write-ups. We've had some just incredible pitching breakdowns getting us ready for the season. Our boy, Matty Ballgame, has done some great work there. We also have rankings of all prospects, all major leaguers, getting you ready for the season. We're doing updates throughout the year as well. And then we have these system breakdowns. So today we are doing the Detroit Tigers. I said that weird, the Detroit Tigers. And we have a bunch of systems we've already done, and we've got a lot more to go. So check us out on Patreon to get the full breakdown of all these systems. As I mentioned, we're here with the Hawk, Mr. Richard Hake, the star of this show. He is going to be the expert here for Detroit. He did the write-up. It's outstanding. I can't wait to get into it. So far, we've done the Arizona Diamondbacks, the Atlanta Braves, the Baltimore Orioles, the Red Sox, the Cubs, the White Sox, the Reds, the Indians, and the Rockies. And here we are with the Detroit Tigers. So let me bring my boy Hawk in. Hawk, how you feeling today, man?
Man, I'm feeling fantastic. It is a rainy, dreary day here in Greensboro, North Carolina. But here, it's fantastic because we're talking baseball. That's always a good thing to do, especially on a wonderful Sunday such as today. I'm excited to talk about the Detroit Tigers. This is a system that I've been kind of happy to be able to do the write-up for the last couple of years on. And this year, I ended up enjoying it a lot more than what I thought I was going to. And that's saying a lot. So I'm excited to get into it with you today on that.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, they're one of these systems, too, that has had a lot of talent for a lot of years. They've been bad for a while, so they've had a lot of high draft picks. And from what I can tell, they've done a pretty good job with these draft picks. You've seen some of the pitchers make their way to the majors, and Mize and Manning and who am I missing here? Skubal, there you go. And there's still some more to come. Not necessarily pitchers, but more guys to come. So good system. They're also making moves this offseason, going and getting Javi Baez, getting Eduardo Rodriguez. And as a Cubs fan, the Rodriguez signing in particular reminded me a little bit of when the Cubs went and got John Lester. It was maybe a year or two early from when they were really going to make their mark. But sometimes the only way to get these guys is to get them when they're available. So that is a legit signing, and I think there is some really, really fun years ahead for Tigers fans. And today we're going to get into the system. For those of you who haven't tuned into us before, hopefully you have, but if not, the way this works is the Hawk in this case has done a 30-man breakdown of their system. We're going to talk about 1 through 10 today. And then again, if you follow us or you subscribe on Patreon, you can get access to the full 30. So we're going to dig into it. Before we do, though, make sure you are checking out the Weekly Streamer and the Hawk, both on Instagram, YouTube, etc. That's where you can follow all of our work. The Hawk can be followed at Must Be the Hawk on all these different channels. So let's dig right into the breakdown here. Sorry, I'm losing my place here a little bit. But let's start off with number 1 in the system. This was probably a difficult one from the standpoint that they just have 2 absolute studs in their system. Definitely a top-heavy system, only from the standpoint that these guys are just absolutely phenomenal. But let's start off with the Hawks' number 1 pick here. A little background feed there. Sorry. All right, so the number 1 player in the Detroit Tigers system is Mr. Riley Greene. Outfielder, age 21, 6'3", 200 pounds, drafted in the first round in the 2019 draft by the Tigers. Hawk, what do you tell me a little bit about Greene and how you arrived at him as your number 1 in their system?
Yeah, no problem. So really, whenever I was doing this write-up, it really just kind of became apparent that there was a 1A, 1B.
For
There
sure.
really is no definite number one in this system. I put down Riley Greene as my number one in this system for a couple reasons. One, if you listen back to the first episode ever posted here on the weekly streamer, the first thing that I said about 5 minutes into it is I am the conductor of the Riley Greene hype train. And I hope that you hopped on because we're about to get to the major leagues here this year. Hopefully, guys, let's go. No, Riley Greene is an amazing talent. Whenever he was drafted in the 2019 draft class, I mean, he was one of the best bat-to-ball high school talents that were in that draft class. And that's what he was kind of being projected as. You know, Riley Greene being taken by the Detroit Tigers in the fifth, with the fifth pick of the first round, you know, was very, very exciting. It's a left-handed bat, really quick hands, quick swing through the zone. He's starting to come into power, and we saw that a little bit whenever we saw him in 2019, right after being drafted. You know, a little bit of power here and there, but great defensive skills. Really looks like an all-around type of gamer for the Tigers. In 2019, you know, we saw a good sample size here in 57 games played, 271 average, 347 OBP, and a 403 slug. That really helped, you know, be able to get him into the eyes of everybody that's out here. Fast forward to the 2020 season, I wrote this in my write-up. Riley Greene and Spencer Torkelson, they were both the captains of the team in the alt site, which is a great compliment for a player at the time that was only, 19, 20 years old at the time. So, he was able to go out there, perform at the alt site, learn a lot from Spencer Torkelson. They actually became very, very good friends, working together in their approach at the plate. And it really shows because he went into the 2021 season here and ended up ascending over 2 different levels. He started the year in Double-A Erie, which he was very young for the level to begin with. Finished the year in Triple-A Toledo. He had a slash line of 301, 387, 534. That is fantastic numbers across the board. In terms of almost having a 3-4-5 slash line. That's what you look for. 24 home runs, 16 stolen bases. What is it? It'd be 57 extra base hits for Riley Greene in 2021. I mean, that's fantastic. That's what you want to see. And really, we'll get to it with Torkelson, why he's, number 2. But Greene really just checked off all the boxes. He is 21 years old right now at AAA, knocking on the door to be able to get at the Tigers. Like you alluded to whenever we started the podcast, the Tigers are going out and buying talent that they need that's not in this farm system to be able to fill in here at the major league level. And Greene is really a huge part of that future for the outfield. Great defender, great bat, some stolen bases, 16 stolen bases. That's probably around what you're going to end up getting whenever he gets to the major leagues, which is very, very serviceable for the beginning half of his career. And he's continuing to put on some power. So Riley Greene is my number 1 prospect. I'm pumped about it.
And it shows, man. I can see the energy. I can feel the energy. It is exciting. And I'm with you, man. Greene is true 5-tool talent. There's not a lot of these guys in the top 100 or in the majors for that matter. A lot of guys' game is very, it's very specific to power or speed or what have you. And he just does a little bit of everything very, very well. And center field is such a tough position to play, too. And he looks the part. It does appear that he will be able to stick there. So really exciting to see him take this step. And I'm maybe as excited, if not more excited, about your 1B or number 2, technically, on your list, Mr. Spencer Torkelson. He profiles as a first baseman or a third baseman, 22 years old, 6'1", 220 pounds. He was drafted in the first round of that 2020 draft. What do we need to be talking about as it relates to Spencer Torkelson here, man?
So obviously everybody's really, really excited about Spencer Torkelson, and they should be. There's a lot to love here. If you go back towards his time at Arizona State, he broke Barry Bonds' freshman home run record immediately over there at Arizona State, which was awesome. Had a great career there. I mean, I ended up breaking it down in the write-ups here. I mean, just really, really good, walk numbers, home run output, average, OBP. I mean, his numbers are just insane across the board. You fast forward to the 2020 season. You know, it sucks for so many of these prospects that they didn't get a chance to be able to fully experience their last year in college. But Torkelson was on another level, man. Whenever you look at just what he was able to do, in his last game or last year there in college. I mean, the guy was just walking a ton, an absolute ton there. And it was
31 times in 17 games to be specific, which is just mind-boggling. It's almost 2 per game.
It's amazing whenever I bring up the fact that he broke Barry Bonds' home run record, right? They were treating him like Barry Bonds going into the 2020 season. They literally would walk him just to avoid him.
Yeah,
which is amazing. And you got to also think about the cast of characters that was there in Arizona State with him, right? He had Alika Williams, who was taken by the Rays in the same draft class that he was, and somebody we're going to talk about later, Gage Workman. All 3 of them were there at Arizona State, and all 3 of them could have been able to play at any of these positions. It's pretty fantastic. But, Spencer Torkelson, ended up coming over once again in the 2020 season. Whenever he did get drafted, 1-1 overall, and nobody was really that surprised because he just looks the part, man.
Stood out.
And he has so much power, and he gets to it. If you watch him swing, he really keeps both hands on the bat. Whenever you watch him swing, it's just straight, and I hate to use his name in this, but it's straight torque, man. It's straight torque. Whenever you watch him swing, exactly, man, he doesn't release. He has 2 hands on the bat. I know I stepped away from the mic, but you still heard me. 2 hands on the bat. He doesn't release. He brings it all the way around. This is just straight power that's running through here with Spencer Torkelson. And you're going to see that, you already saw it here in 2021. I'll get over those numbers in a second. But whenever he gets to the majors, this is a guy that's really going to be able to take the reins and go. Now, we do need to talk about this, and this is why he is 1B. The power is immense, okay? He might be able to stick at third for a little while, move to first. First is where he's going to probably end up being long-term. The reason why he is 1B is because of the average. Granted, he had a 267 average this year. He did ascend over 3 different levels, high A, double A, and triple A. And, as you would expect, the average was higher in high A. Ended up going down to 263 in double A and 238 whenever he finally did get to triple A. And that was in 40 games at triple A, okay? So that's slightly concerning at the fact that the batting average went down that much. This guy does draw a ton of watts. And therefore, the OBP is going to be through the roof, okay? So we got to start kind of preparing ourselves for this, right? Whenever he gets to the major leagues, he's probably not going to be a 300 hitter at first base or third base, which would have been just absolutely it's Freddie Freeman, right?
Yeah.
Freddie Freeman. He's probably not going to be Freddie Freeman with the bat, realistically speaking. He's going to be somewhere in that, Pete Alonso 260, maybe 270 here and there. But that's probably where he's going to sit with the average. With that being said, he should be a higher OBP contributor. I mean, even at AAA where he struggled a little bit, he had a 350 OBP. Let me get to his numbers for the whole season so we get the full picture. 267 average, a 383 OBP, and a 552 slug. Those are solid numbers in the OBP and the slug department. And like I said, the OBP went down. He would have been a 400 OBP batter if he did not go to AAA. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And it fits with what his college profile was, too. So this isn't something that is oh, wow, okay, he did really good at OBP. Will he be able to repeat it? He will. He should. He should be able to stick within that 350 to 380 OBP where he ended up sitting. I think that's going to be about right. Yeah.
Well,
and then yeah, what were you going to say?
No, I was just going to say, I mean, the fact that he can possibly crank out a 350 to 370 OBP with it, I don't want to say poor batting average, but with a respectable batting average. If he can just hone his skills just that much more to squeeze another 10, 15% in that batting average, I mean, he is a plus 400 OBP type guy. And, if you can lay off the pitches, in theory, you should be a little bit better with your selection. So I would not give up that the batting average can't come up. I don't think it'll be a 300 hitter,
No.
But 270, 280, with some time, hitters typically do get better as they age to a point. And, he's the whopping 22-year-old with a lot of time on his side. So a lot to be excited here with Torkelson.
Oh, of course. And you look at the fact that the power, like I said, is absolutely immense. 29 doubles, 30 home runs. He had 2 triples. Okay. So he hit 61 extra base hits throughout the course of the season. Still stole 5 bags. Still stole 5 bags. Jeez, if I could talk, that'd be great. The strikeouts did get a little bit high, but like I said, that's really going to be kind of a part of his game. Think about whenever Joey Gallo had that really, really good season where his batting average was absurd for what Joey Gallo hits. That could be what he does on a regular. Torkelson will strike out, but he'll get on base a whole lot too. The average will probably sit that 260, 270 range, like what we were talking about. That's why he's 1B for me, and that's why I thought Riley Greene needed to be slightly ahead of him, which might be egregious to some people, but that's kind of where I just sit. Torque should be up this year. I guarantee Riley Greene and Torque will start the year in AAA, and you'll see them in Detroit in no time. And if they get the pieces that they're looking to get and have already gotten, it won't be a surprise to be able to see them there in that lineup.
Yeah, for sure. And, maybe you were alluding to this. I mean, there's rumors that they're hot and heavy over Correa, too. So if there's another big piece, I mean, it just shows that Detroit is serious and ready to compete here. The other thing I was glad you brought up is anytime I think high OBP, low batting average, I think of Joey Gallo. And I think, it's safe to say that Torkelson has the power to compete with the Joey Gallo. But Joey Gallo is a 220 hitter, right? 210. Yeah. I mean, he is not a 260 hitter, which is what we think Torkelson very well could be. So he brings the power. He's got the OBP. Strikeouts are a bit of an issue, but who are they not an issue for in this day and age? So anyway, 1A, 1B, both guys extremely, extremely high flying talent. I mean, top 25 prospects for sure across any system. So anyway, a lot to like in Detroit. But let's move on. Let's move on to number 3. And I love your number 3. It's a little bit aggressive, or at least surprises me a little some, in that it is the curse of the high school pitcher. The number 3 prospect is a starting pitcher coming out of high school, Mr. Jackson Jobe. He's a right-handed pitcher, 19 years old, 6'2", 190 pounds, drafted this year in the first round with the 3rd overall pick. You must really like you some Jackson Jobe to be taking high schoolers and putting him this high up. Clearly Detroit does. What do we need to know about him?
Yeah, I mean, they most certainly do. I mean, they took him, the 3rd overall pick in this past year's draft. And, there was talks that Jackson Jobe could go 1-1. There was actually some talks that he could. The guy, and I'll lead into why that's the case. Whenever you look at what he was able to do in high school, and yes, high school numbers are very inflated. You see the talent that's up there, and it gets to be crazy, right? Well, whenever you're looking at what he did at Heritage Hall High School, Jackson Jobe, just came out and just completely obliterated. He ended up striking out 122 batters in 51 2/3 innings pitched. And Ryan, I don't know if you're good with quick math. I know I'm not, but I did calculate this. That's a 21.11 K per 9.
Wow,
pretty darn good, right? He had a .13 ERA with 9 wins and 0 losses. So he was really, really good at high school pitching. And he played football too, which was pretty cool. So he would do that as well. This is a guy that already is really he's taken that step to be in the same conversation of where Mackenzie Gore was in 2018, and he might be the best prep arm since Mackenzie Gore was drafted. Now, let me back this off a little bit, because we all know about prep arms, and the amount of time that they take to be able to get to the majors. There's a lot that can happen, elbow injuries, and exactly what we're seeing with Mackenzie Gore right now, right? Mackenzie Gore was no doubt a top 5 player in all of, prospects, really. And all of a sudden now he's lost his control. His mechanics are out of whack. And now all of a sudden we're trying to see if he's even going to be a relief pitcher at this point. Okay. So things can shift quite a bit. The talent is there. The talent's there with Mackenzie Gore. The talent's there with Forrest Whitley, if you want to go back that far. But it's a matter of how they enact that talent, right? Jackson Jobe has got all the tools possible. This is a high school arm that's already sitting 93 to 95. He can top out at 96 right now, which is fantastic for a player that's only 19 years old at this point.
Yeah.
And whenever you're looking at the fact that he potentially has 4+ pitches, and the fact that his curveball is very nasty, a great break to it, and the slider they say is better than the fastball, has a ton of break. The RPMs that he's able to get on that slider is what does it. So the movement that he gets on the slider and the fastball is what creates the swing and miss that he's getting. And what is very odd, not odd, but like very hard to come by, is a prep arm that has a great understanding for the changeup, right? So prep arms typically take a while to be able to develop changeups. This is a guy who already is sitting here with a plus changeup with good tumble at the end. So, I mean, really, it's just going to come down to, what kind of, filling out he has left to do on his body. 6'2", 190 pounds. There's still a little bit more projection left here. So that'll kind of determine how that control kind of goes going forward. Jackson Jobe did not pitch whenever he got drafted, but there is no news of any sort of injury. They really just wanted to, take it easy for the rest of this year, start him out next year fresh, and then move him up through the system. I'll be really, really excited to be able to watch MLIB TV with Jackson Jobe and see. We have a couple guys that are actually going to be up in that, the higher Michigan area for the high A area for being able to get some live looks at Jackson Jobe. And I really hope that we do, because I would love to be able to see how that pitch mix works and starting his career in the cold weather. Ryan, you know all about the cold weather. I mean, spring, you get done with spring training and you go right on up there to what?
40 degrees.
More cold weather. So, I'll be curious to see how he transitions in that. And I'll be curious to see if it's a little bit of a learning curve there. But Jackson Jobe, love him a lot. 10-team relevant for sure. And is a great addition to this system.
Yeah. Yeah. And as I alluded to before, a lot of their pitchers, they had a lot of pitching talent, have made their way up to the majors. So Jobe is maybe part of the next wave of stud starting pitchers. So it'd be exciting to see him progress. And, at 19, it could be 2-3 years. So, if you're grabbing him in your 10 team, be ready to wait for a while. But he's that good of an arm that now is the time to go get him. So good discussion there. Let's keep moving here to your number 4 prospect, Mr. Ryden Kreidler. He is a shortstop, 24 years old, 6'4", 208 pounds, drafted in the 4th round with the 112th overall pick in the 2019 draft by the Tigers. What do you like about Kreidler?
Yeah, so this is a guy that might shock a little bit of people whenever they're looking at this list. Typically, he's a lot lower in a lot of other folks' lists. Ryan Kreidler had a fantastic season in 2021. And this is a guy that really, for the most part, kind of went under the radar, right? Whenever he was drafted in 2019. Really didn't perform all that great whenever he got the opportunity, but made a lot of mechanical changes once the 2020 season was underway. He was invited to the alt camp and made a lot of changes in his power approach. This was a part of his game that was not there previously. Now, in 2021, he was given, the full opportunity to be able to show what he was able to do. And in AA and AAA, he ascended 2 different levels, 129 games played. He had a 270, 349, 454 slug. So that's a slash line of 270, 349, 454. He ended up having 22 home runs, 15 stolen bases. And whenever you look at what he was able to do, he was able to have 45 extra base hits. And this is all from the shortstop second base bag. So Ryan and I were talking about this prior to, and he alluded to it, the fact that they've already signed Javi Baez. Okay, and Javi Baez has been able to play shortstop second base. I really think that the Tigers like him a lot. and they're going to try to move him quickly this year. I mean, since he's already in AAA, he's pretty much ready to go. And whenever you look at his numbers, he actually got better when he went to AAA, which is crazy, right? So he played 41 games at AAA, a 304, 407, 519 slash line. 7
3, 4,
bombs,
5.
5, yeah, 3, 4, 5. That's what I'm talking about. This guy is Major League ready now. He's Major League ready now. I think he's a much better solution than Willie Castro. And don't get me wrong, I loved Willie Castro when we were talking about him in the 2020 draft or the 2020 season, but we got to get off whenever we need to get off, right? Willie Castro is a good bench piece. Kreidler might be a very good option at shortstop or second base for the Detroit Tigers. And I think that this is a buy now opportunity for very, very little cost. I don't see him going for much in 30-man leagues. Therefore, I mean, he's not owned in 10. He won't be owned in 12-team leagues either. So, if you're in some of these deeper dynasty leagues, this would be one of my main targets for this year because I think that he'll be able to, if not be able to start with the Tigers, if they don't go out and get a Correa or Story or someone else, he'll be able to start for them. And I think that he'll be able to produce to a pretty good level to be an everyday regular. And at worst case scenario, he's a bench bat that'll be able to help you out in some of these deeper dynasty leagues. Ryan, you and I both know that helps you win leagues.
Oh, absolutely. Be able to plug and play, and he's got some flexibility too. I mean, 6'4", he could probably even play third if he had to. But anyway,
he's big and he moves good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right though. Kreidler's not a name that was tip of my tongue. I had heard of him, but I didn't know a lot about him. So I like the aggressive placement. But a good 21 season will do that, especially when you're knocking on the door. That's when the pressure's starting to mount, and he made the most of the year. So it'll be fun to see him take that next step.
Yeah.
Moving right along, another shortstop, now younger shortstop, Mr. Cristian Santana, 18 years old, 6 feet, 165 pounds, signed in January of this year, international prospect. Tell us a little bit about Cristian Santana.
Yeah, so whenever he was in the international signing class, I liked what I saw of the raw tools that he was able to, show while the Tigers were scouting him. I was just curious of how long it would take for him to be able to enact that. That was really kind of, my main thing that I wanted to see. And he didn't disappoint whenever he got the opportunity here in 2021. They did start him out in the DSL. I was curious if they were going to start him there or try to bring him stateside. A lot of teams right now are starting these international guys in rookie ball. But, he performed very well. I think the bat is something that's going to take a little bit of time to be able to get used to. But he has a great understanding at the plate of the strike zone. He does draw walks, and it's evident by his 269, 421 OBP, and 520 slug. So this is a guy that really does have that good eye at the plate, and whenever he does make contact with the ball, that ball is going. He hit 9 home runs. He stole 12 bags, and whenever you look at the fact that he was able to steal 23, or not 23. He was able to get 23 extra base hits on the season in rookie ball in only 54 games. Hey, that's getting it done, man. And I like what I see here with Cristian Santana at the shortstop bag. I mean, you're seeing a guy that can be able to hit for some power. If he can get that bat right and hit for, 270 or so at the next level, that would be something pretty awesome to be able to have. And Cristian Santana is to a point where he's not, completely busting out the radars, in which you can acquire him for pretty cheap in deep dynasty leagues.
Yeah, that's a good call. Cristian Santana, 18. So 2 guys in your top 5 under age 20 in Jobe and Santana. So a lot. They've got some guys knocking on the door, but they've got some youth as well, which is that's a sign of a good system. They're drafting well repeatedly. Moving right along, another shortstop, third base type, Gage Workman. You actually already brought him up because he was a teammate of Torque. Let's talk a little bit more, though, about Gage Workman. He is 22 years old. Again, profiles as a shortstop or a third baseman, 6'3", 202 pounds. Drafted in the 4th round with the 102 overall pick of the 2020 draft by the Tigers. Tell us a little bit about Workman. What about his game gets you excited?
Yeah, so this is a guy that literally can play anywhere. Like I said, whenever he was playing at Arizona State, his natural position was shortstop. Couldn't play shortstop because Alika Williams was there. A future Gold Glove shortstop if he's given the opportunity. Couldn't play there. Couldn't play at third base, which is his second position because there's a guy named Spencer Torkelson who's playing there. I don't know. And then they can move him over to first. He'll play some first. He'll play some second. He'll play some outfield. He'll just kind of play wherever. He's a very, very versatile person. And, whenever you saw him, it's difficult because his 2020 season did not go the way that he wanted it to go. He really, really struggled. Therefore, he dropped in the draft. Tigers still selected him. I thought it was a great value for where they got him. He goes and gets his first taste of pro ball this year, and the results are mixed. Okay, so whenever you look at his /9, a 246 average, a 326 OBP, and a 434 slug, you just think, okay, so why is he so high? You look at the fact that he has 12 home runs, 31 stolen bases. Now, the 31 stolen bases, they make you raise your eyebrows, but I'll explain those in just a moment. There's a little bit more to it. You look at the fact that he had 37 doubles. Okay? 37 doubles. This tells me a lot right here. 37 doubles, 6 triples to go with his 12 home runs. Okay? And the majority of those doubles were done at high A, 16 at low A, and 21 at high A. This is a underlying factor for future power. And Gage Workman has that. I think that the bat is always going to struggle a little bit. And I worry about that because if he cannot hit a respectable batting average, he's not going to get to the major leagues. And that is very frustrating as a fantasy owner, right? Now, to kind of get into the stolen bases, 22 of his 31 stolen bases were done at low A. If you know anything about what's going on at low A right now, there is a rule change that was enacted this year in which that a pitcher can only check a batter twice before he is free to run, and he cannot be contested. Gage Workman took full advantage of that rule, and he stole a ton of bases as a result. Regardless, 67 games played at high A, he's still stole 9 bags. So there is stolen base potential here. It's just probably not what you're looking at right away with those underlying numbers, right? So you might be asking yourself, okay, I get it. So why is he at number 6? And that's a great question. The strikeout rate is bad. It needs to go down. This leads towards why his average is where it is. What I like about Gage Workman is the fact that he can actually hold a good walk rate. 13.2 at low A, that's a good walk rate. An 18.1 dipped a little bit, but still respectable here at high A. You typically want to see your batters around 8% or so. Higher is always better, but that's where you typically want to see them for good OBP numbers going into the future. This is a guy that I think that can get to, decent OBP. I think that he can get to a 250 OBP at the next level. Or not 250, a 350 OBP at the next level. A 250 average is what I was looking at. That's where I kind of peg him. But it's really if he cannot make the bat to ball contact that he needs to, and he's a 220, 230 hitter, he'll never crack the majors because the other tools aren't enough to be able to hold him there. But the upside is huge if he can be able to get that, that hit tool under control. Like I said, a little bit of power, a little bit of speed. If you can get that average where it needs to be, I mean, this is a guy that, can be very beneficial. And I put him in here, for 12-team leagues and up. I mean, you'd have to have a deep minor league system in order to do him in a 12-team. 20-team and 30-team's really going to where Gage Workman really, gains his value.
Yeah. Well, and, the other thing you brought up that, he does a little bit of everything well as play a lot of different positions well as well. So saying well a lot, but
hey, that's well.
If he can make it, that's well done, Ryan.
Go to the well. Go to the well for that one.
Yeah. Anyway, as we derail here, Workman though. So Workman, if he can just do a little bit more with the bat, everything else should play, right? Mm-hmm. The Ks are an issue, but again, if he can if he can just improve just ever so slightly and make it to the majors, that is such a valuable piece. The guy that you can slot in, slot out, Ben Zobrist type, what have you. Very, very valuable. All right. Moving right along. Number 7, another pitcher, Mr. Ty Madden. He is a right-handed pitcher, 21 years old, 6'3", 215 pounds. He was drafted in the supplemental round, I believe, if I remember correctly, here in the 2021 draft with the 32nd overall pick, tail end of the first round. Tell me a little bit about Ty Madden, will you?
Yeah. So Ty Madden is kind of the question mark here, right? So Ty Madden was a guy that I actually really liked going into this year's draft class. And if you go back and you find in the archives the video of the Country Biscuit and I during the draft, we did a live coverage while it was happening. And it was pretty shocking to see him just continually fall down the rankings and not be taken. And like you said, he was able to be taken, with the 32nd overall pick. So in the comp round, so still, on the back end of the first round. So it made me really try to wonder why. What is going on? Why is Ty Madden falling? Because he was really pegged to be a top 10 pick. So why is he falling to 30, 32? So I went and did some digging on here, and you look at his numbers at Texas, and I mean they were good. They weren't great. They were good. In the COVID shortened season, 4 starts, a 1.80 ERA, 26 Ks and 25 innings pitched. I mean, they're good. They're not great. You look at, what he's been able to do, for the years prior. He was a good pitcher, a 2.45 ERA, 137 batters struck out and 113 2/3 innings pitched the year prior whenever he had a full season. So, he could show that he could strike out a lot of batters. He has the tools to be able to strike out a lot of batters with his pitch mix, and we'll get to that here in just a second. But I found out that the main concern that people had with Ty Madden, and it continues to still be an issue, is the fact that he throws laser beams. He does throw for a high velocity, but the problem is the ball does not spin. It doesn't spin very hard at all. It's literally just coming in on a line. So the RPMs are what's really kind of keeping people away, because in today's game, we're trying to look towards, RPMs and being able to get, the most spin rate out of even a fastball to be able to show rise or deception, right? So Ty Madden was kind of falling victim to that. And, it's unfortunate. And I think that the Tigers could be able to try to work with him a bit, because it's odd that his fastball is having those issues, but his slider is a plus pitch and has great movement. So
yeah, and from the listener's perspective, if I can just pause you for a second. So my understanding of what you just said is basically when he throws his fastball, the hitter can very quickly recognize this as a fastball because it is beeline, straight line, laser, like you said. So it's easy to pick up on. So having better spin rate makes it move a little bit. It ducks in, it ducks out, etc. So he's maybe not telegraphing his pitches, but they're getting a good view of the fastball when it's coming in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And, he's a 4-pitch mix guy. So he has a fastball, curveball, slider, and changeup. The changeup, slider, and fastball are all plus pitches. Okay. The changeup has great tumble, works very well. And I think maybe part of the fastball woes is that the fact that it's just looking like it's coming out like a changeup and just kind of just sitting there. That might be what's going on here. He does feature a curveball, but it might be a pitch that he ends up scrapping. It's average at this point, but it's not all that effective. The slider is really where he ends up getting his swing and miss. So it's going to be really interesting to see, because he didn't end up pitching after being drafted. And once again, this has nothing to do with injury, because I looked all over to find, if there's an injury that's plaguing him. There's no injury concerns. It leads me to believe that the Tigers probably know. I mean, surely they know that this is an issue as to why he's been falling. Wouldn't surprise me if they were kind of working with him, in the alt site, or getting him over to drive line, like what we were talking about with Josh Wolf earlier in the season, or the off season here, about trying to work on some of these pitches to be able to get more spin, more rotation, more deception. Ty Madden, if he can figure that out, all right, he's at 7 on my list right now. If he can figure it out, he is an SP2, maybe even an SP1, if he can really get out there and get it done. If he cannot figure it out, If he cannot figure it out, he's probably going to end up being an SP4 or SP5. And there's a big discrepancy in it. Either way, I think you're getting a starter here.
Yeah.
But he's got fantastic stuff. He's got a starter's build. He's ready to go. And, you know, Detroit actually has done a very good job besides Mize, Manning, Skubal in developing pitchers. You know, you got Spencer Turnbull, who had a career year. And, you know, you see these guys doing good at the major league level. I mean, Boyd was the same thing. Now, unfortunately, you know, DFA is a free agent right now, but he's got good stuff. Detroit can get to this, and I think that they see the talent that's coming. I like Ty Madden. I don't see paying up big for him until he figures out those changes, because you're going to be paying SP2 prices right now. But I want to see him get to SP2 production.
Right. Yep. And I was going to say too, I mean, if you're in these deeper leagues, which some of our listeners certainly are, Ty Madden is a name that, based on the way you've ranked him here, he's probably a little expensive, right? If I wanted to go acquire him, a little expensive. So you're right. He needs to show it a little bit in order to really be worth that price.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on to our number 8 prospect in the Tigers system, we have Dillon Dingler. Now, for anybody who's listened to our group, whether it's me, the Hawk, the Country Biscuit, Ed Fingerhut, we hate catchers. But for some reason, Dillon Dingler happens to be a catcher that as a group we seem to all kind of like. So I'm excited to get the Hawks' perspective on why that is, because we're kind of a bunch of catcher haters. But for whatever reason, Dingler is well regarded in our illustrious crew, if you will. Anyway, Dillon Dingler, catcher, age 23, 6'3", 210 pounds, drafted in the second round in the 2020 draft with the 38th overall pick by the Tigers. Why the heck does the Weekly Streamer crew actually like Dillon Dingler?
You know, and this write-up might or might not support that. You know,
I know.
Looking back on it, and it's unfortunate, man, because we really, really, really like Dillon Dingler. And, you know, we've had the pleasure to actually have family members of the Dinglers actually like a lot of our stuff that we do on Twitter and Instagram as well, because we really do like Dillon Dingler. He, believe it or not, was a outfielder converted into a catcher at Ohio State, which is just, you know, very odd.
Yeah.
You know, so he's still somewhat developing behind the plate, albeit he's developing actually relatively fast. But this is a catcher that reminds me a lot, and I think reminds Ed, the Irish Finger Hut. I don't know about the Country Biscuit. He might like him pretty good, but he reminds us a lot of JT Realmuto. Okay. Realmuto, you know, whenever he first got the call to the Marlins, you know, he had some speed. He was an athletic catcher. He would move around, the bat to ball skills. You know, it took a little bit of time to get to where they are right now. Now, I mean, he just goes out there and gets it done every single time. Dillon Dingler reminds me a lot of JT Realmuto. He has a cannon for an arm that he used in the outfield. Now he's throwing out guys at second base, left and right. This is arguably one of the best arms from the catcher position right now. Unfortunately, in 2021, whenever he got his first taste of pro ball, it was a bit rough. He did go 3 levels, and for the first 2 levels, he did very, very well. For the year, let me start there. For the year, he slashed 239, 310, 407, had 12 home runs, 1 stolen base. He had 26 extra base hits for the whole season, which isn't bad. The extra base hits shows that there's power to be unlocked here. But the OBP, you know, doesn't look all that great as the whole season. Now, whenever you got to break it down and look at what he was able to do, and the reason why he's at number 8 on this list and not outside of the top 10 is the fact that he started the year in low A Lakeland, in only 3 games, a 333 average, 333 OBP, 417 slug. That's great. He goes and he plays 32 games at high A in West Michigan. 287 average, 376 OBP, a 549 slug, which showed that, you know, he had the power going, he had the walks, he was getting on base, he was doing what he needed to do, right?
Yeah.
So he did that. He had arguably his best power output, had 8 home runs. He had, 6 doubles and a triple as well. And from the catcher position, a triple, I mean, come on,
Yeah.
it's huge. Warrant's getting the promotion up to Double-A Erie, and that's where everything just went off the rails. He went up there to go join Torque and Greene right before they got the call, and he just struggled. 50 games, 202 average, 264 OBP, 314 slug. That is not good. 4 home runs. He only had 10 extra base hits in those 50 games. So, I mean, he really felt it. The strikeouts went up. The walks went down. So, I mean, whenever you're looking at, what he was able to do at Double-A, I think honestly, he was just worn out. I mean, he was drafted in 2020 during the COVID-shortened season. Who knows how much actually that he was able to do over there at the alt site. Now he gets a full opportunity at full season ball. Once again, still in the transition of learning the catcher position.
Right.
I don't know. I want to give him a mulligan, and that's really what I wrote in the article here. You could see the good signs to start the year, and then all of a sudden it just fell apart. So I'm giving him a mulligan for 2022. More than likely start the year in Double-A. Wouldn't surprise me to see him finish the year at Triple-A and not be far from being the catcher of the future for the Detroit Tigers. And the reason why he's on a fantasy list like this is because he could give you contributions towards your fantasy team. I didn't see much of the stolen bases from him this year, but I think that there's something that he could be able to try to work on, hopefully get to. If not, the power is there, the extra base hit ability is there, so something you could buy into with Dingler.
Yeah, I mean, you were a little bit pessimistic the way you kind of set that up, but you do like him. I mean, he had a nice season until he didn't, and it was a really good season actually until it wasn't.
Right.
But again, first full season in pro ball as a catcher. I think there's probably some breakdown there that is warranted, right? I mean, that's a difficult position, probably the most difficult position to play, and to do it at first time around. So for whatever reason, the streamer crew really likes Dillon Dingler. You're pouring a little water on the fire there, but I think he's still a good piece and somebody that we will be excited to see if he can stick at catcher, maybe works back to outfield. But I think with this skill set, if he can stick as a catcher, that is an immense amount of value at a position that just generally you just don't get too excited about from a fantasy perspective.
Right. Moving
right along, let's go to number 9, Mr. Izaac Pacheco. I don't know how to say that. Pacheco. Izaac Pacheco. He's a third baseman. He's 19 years old, 6'4", 225 pounds. Drafted in the second round of this year's 2021 draft with the 39th overall pick. Tell me a little bit about Pacheco.
Yeah, so really one of the major tools here, because this is a high school bat, the major thing that kind of stands out here is big power.
Yeah.
Big power, third baseman, he's got a cannon for an arm. He can play the third base bag very, very well. He will more than likely be the third baseman of the future for the Tigers as long as that bat can come around. That's really, the main point here. He was taken in the second round, so the Tigers think very highly of him in this past year's draft. And, with him also being a left-handed bat, that plays pretty darn well too with that kind of power. So, he was able to go down to rookie ball, and it was so-so. I mean, a 226 average, 339 OBP, 330 slug. He hit 1 home run, 1 stolen base, and ended up having 7 extra base hits in 30 games. The extra base hits are, encouraging. It shows that there is the power that is there. It's got to be more than that, obviously. But the ability to take a walk, 18 walks in 30 games, it helps lend to that OBP. So there's a good chance that at least he has an understanding of the strike zone. Now it's just a matter of getting bat on the ball. So with Izaac Pacheco, it's going to take some time. It's going to take some development. He reminds me a lot of Parker Meadows, who's also in this system. He was a high schooler with a very, very low bat tool, but the power was big. Very similar to his brother, Austin Meadows, right? So Pacheco reminds me a lot of that, and he's going to be a project. Now, if he can put it all together, I mean, there's a very real chance I see, you might laugh at this, but I kind of see old third base Nick Castellanos here, a former Tiger. I see that kind of profile. And who knows? I mean, at 6'4", I mean, he's got the same build, 225 pounds too. Yeah. So he's a big boy.
He's a big boy.
He's a big boy.
Yeah. Well, and I think you always have to look at the year in which you're drafted that season with a grain of salt, because you're typically entering the season sort of mid-year and you're getting your first assignment of pro ball. As you mentioned, you only had 30 games. So I think 2022 will be, of course, a much more telling year than the half season, given that he was just drafted. But Pacheco, I like it. I like the profile. I like the analysis that you gave there. I even like the comp. I mean, Castellanos, people forget he was a third baseman for quite a while, and he took some steps here the last few years. But that's a good comp, and even the same system too. So ironic how that played out. But moving right along here to the number 10 prospect in the Detroit Tigers prospect breakdown. Number 10, Roberto Campos. He is an outfielder. He's 18 years old, 6'3", 200 pounds. He was signed as an international prospect back in the 2019 class. Tell me a little bit more about Roberto Campos.
So I might have been as excited as the Detroit Tigers to be able to see what he was able to do this year. This was a guy that was a very, very under-the-radar signing for the Detroit Tigers in 2019. They really, really liked what they saw here in terms of Roberto Campos, and really what we're looking at is a outfielder that could come into some big power. He's 18 years old right now. He's going to need a little bit more development in terms of the bat. Showing a little bit of stolen base type of power or speed here on the bags, but I don't think that's going to be a big part of his game. Whenever he was able to go to straight rookie ball, they didn't even bother sending him to the DSL. They brought him straight to the States, rookie ball for him. A 228 average is a 316 OBP. I mean, it's okay. And a 441 slug. So the 441 slug, although on the lower side, is something that I'm actually kind of a little bit, intrigued by, because of the fact that he was able to have 5 doubles and 8 home runs in 38 games played, which shows that the big power is there. He is a 6'3", 200 pound outfielder already. Right. And I think that this is a guy that can really kind of, work on his body and really get to a point where he can be able to be, a 30-plus homer bat if he can continue his development and go from there. Now, I have him at number 10 primarily because there's a couple that we'll get here in a little bit in terms of like risers. I have him here because I think now is your opportunity. Last year was your opportunity, but this year you still have time. You can purchase him in deep dynasty leagues, like 20, 30 team leagues. This is somebody who will cost you next to nothing. I'm sorry, anybody who wants to try to value a 228 average, they're not going to charge you a whole lot. So this is a throw-in piece on a lot of these different types of deals, but this is something that I think could end up coming into fruition for you in some of those deep dynasty leagues, 30 team, 20 team. This is good outfield depth for you to be able to have in your system, and I had to make sure that I put this here at the end of the episode for you. And I'll be excited to see what he does whenever they do either decide to leave him at rookie ball for next year or bring him to low A or high A for next season. We've already seen the Tigers like being aggressive with their prospects. They like pushing them in their system. I'm writing up Miami's system right now. It's the same thing. Miami's extremely aggressive with their players. Detroit is as well, as long as you show them bits and pieces that they want to see to push you forward.
Yeah, and I think we should draw a little bit more attention to, or at least not downplay, the power, right? You mentioned 8 home runs in 39 games. I mean, that's a little more than a month's worth of games if you're thinking about it in major league terms. 8 bombs in a month, or even 7 bombs in a month, whatever. I mean, who knows if it translates all the way to the majors, but that is some legit power for the level. You're right, the batting average is the OBP is not anything special either, but the power is there. And at 18 years old and still coming into his own in terms of body, I mean, this could be a big, big power bat. and a name that's relatively unknown. So really good
It
call
looks
there.
raw. Yeah, it looks raw with that power. If they can hone that, I think you'll be in good shape.
Yeah. So that is the top 10 prospects in the Detroit Tigers farm system. Again, the way that this works is we review the top 10 here on the pod. If you'd like to see the Hawks number 11 through 30, that is included on our Patreon page. And in addition to the top 10, we are here just a moment going to share a couple guys that we are excited about, or the Hawk is excited about, as risers in the system. But before we do, let me rattle off the top 10 again for the Detroit Tigers. Number 1, Mr. Riley Greene. The number 1B, or I guess technically number 2, Spencer Torkelson. Number 3, Jackson Jobe. Number 4, Ryan Kreidler. Number 5, Cristian Santana. Number 6, Gage Workman. Number 7, Ty Madden. Number 8, Dillon Dingler. Number 9, Izaac Pacheco. And number 10, Roberto Campos. Hawk, awesome job on the write-up. Really love it. I love that the Tigers have such a mix of guys on the verge and guys really super young and a little bit in between too. They have done a really nice job here the last few years. And as we've mentioned a couple of times, I mean, they are taking steps forward as a major league team. And it'll be really interesting to see how these prospects play a role in the next 3-5 years. All right, so as I mentioned, we do like to see you highlight a player or 2 or 3 or as many as you want to share that you are excited about as cracking the top 10 next year or maybe making contributions at the major league level. So I'm going to let you go. Who are a couple players you're excited about, man?
Yeah, so I'm actually going to give you 3. So I did 2 on my write-up here. 2 of them are going to be from the write-up. The third one is going to be a freebie for you guys, okay? Number 1, the first guy I want to bring up here, I think that I know, I have a very, very strong feeling he's going to end up probably within the top 5 of the system next year.
Wow.
I'm going bold here.
Yeah.
Top 5 next season. So we'll see how this plays out. But the guy I want to highlight here is Colt Keith. Okay? If you remember, Colt Keith was drafted in the 2020 draft, and this was a pitcher, third baseman. The Tigers said, don't pitch, even though that scouts were saying he was a better pitcher than a bat. They said, don't pitch, go to third base. So that's what he did. So this year, he was able to go to low A. He started in rookie ball for a game or 2, but, I mean, there wasn't much to see there. I mean, it was all good numbers, so I don't really need to touch on that. He really went to low A, Lake County, and slashed 320, 436, 422. He had 1 home run, 4 stolen bases, and ended up having 10 extra base hits in 44 games played. This is a kid, because he's not old. He's like 20 years old right now. I think 19, 20 years old, who has an excellent understanding of the strike zone. He can draw walks. You know, there is power to be had here, and the average seems to be pretty good. Now, he did get the bump to high A. I don't know if it was just the same thing with Dingler, but he struggled. High A, he ended up playing 18 games, a 162 average, 250 OBP, 250 slug, 1 home run, no stolen bases, 3 extra base hits in 18 games. The 3 extra base hits in 18 games, that's something to be seen. There's still power showing there, but for the most part, those numbers are just kind of meh. I just think that he ended up falling off, quite frankly. A lot of these guys, especially the younger guys, are just not used to the grind of a long season like this and the traveling.
That's right.
You know, Josh Wolf brought this up. You know, traveling is something that's just not taken into account with a lot of these systems, and the amount that is and what it takes on a body. But Colt Keith, I think, can end up being a top 5 prospect here in very, very, very short order. And that's why I wanted to make sure for a fact that I put him in here. My next guy that I want to bring up here real quick is Alex Faedo. This is a guy that I really, really liked. I brought him up in last year's podcast. I think shortly after the podcast, we ended up hearing word that he was going to be down with Tommy John. So he missed the entire year. No baseball at all. Back in 2019, his last year of pitching, he had 22 starts, a 3.90 ERA, Struck out 134 batters in 115 and a third innings, kept batters to a 235 average against. This is a future SP3, SP4 back-end rotation piece for fantasy. 26 years old right now, unfortunately, because of that Tommy John surgery and being out for it. The Tigers are going to probably push him. It will not surprise me, whenever he does get back. Depending on when he gets back this year, it might be mid-year, so I don't know. I don't know when he'll be up, but 6'5", 225 pounds. It's a starter's build. He's got, a good 3-pitch mix. And in worst case scenario, he's, a relief pitcher, but Alex Faedo can be had for relatively cheap. And the second one that could help you in the major leagues this year is Joey Wentz. Joey Wentz has actually put together a full season after coming back from Tommy John surgery. This is a guy with a 3-pitch mix of a fastball, curveball, and changeup at 6'5", 220 pounds. The numbers were so-so, but this could be an SP5. It could be, a long reliever for you. 82 strikeouts in 72 innings pitched in 18 starts. He played low A and then got bumped to double A. So it wouldn't surprise me to start the year in double A, go triple A, and maybe make a major league debut this year. Either way, there's a lot to love with this Tigers team. A lot of upside guys. So go grab you some.
Excellent work, man. I really enjoyed the pod and the write-up as well. Very, very detailed. So for those of you following us on Patreon, you are in for a treat because it is stat heavy and the breakdown is very, 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 very good. So well done there, Hawk. Well, that's it for this week's episode. Again, Detroit Tigers breakdown. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please subscribe to the podcast. We are releasing these 30-man breakdowns every single week. Typically drops on Thursdays. Might be a little bit goofy around the holidays, but typically on Thursdays. And again, one team per week. It is a lot of work. We are putting a lot of time and energy in this, and we hope that you are getting a lot out of it. So please subscribe to the pod and also join us on Patreon. Again, a lot of this work is just a bunch of dads spending time writing up these articles, putting these breakdowns together. Any support and anything you can do to support our work, we truly appreciate it. So please look up Weekly Streamer on Patreon. Hawk, excellent job. Please be sure to follow him at Must Be the Hawk. Let's let you close out your own show, huh?
I always appreciate it, and I appreciate the work you do here for hosting these, man. That's always a win, man, whenever people can hear the silky smooth voice of Mr. Late Night, Ryan Kobiak, host of the Full Count pod. And from everybody here at the Weekly Streamer, make sure that you guys have yourselves a great baseball week.